Welcome to RAINTREE Peruvian Horses in Poolville, Texas, just a ways west of downtown Fort Worth. It is in the quiet, rolling, wooded hills of this area that Cheryl Aldrich and Dave Johnson have built and maintained a deep connection with the Peruvian horse. Both Dave and Cheryl have a history with the Peruvian horse that extends nearly 4 decades. Over this time period, they have developed what some might consider to be the most comprehensive relationship to be found with the Peruvian breed and its origins. Although Cheryl, who's also an accredited judge, and Dave breed, train, market, and sell Peruvian horses and have competed in numerous national and international competitions, their involvement with the Peruvian breed runs deeper than most. Their ranch in Texas is also headquarters for RAINTREE Tech, displaying some of the most beautifully authentic, handcrafted traditional Peruvian tack. Who would have thought that the gateway to Peru would be found in north-central Texas? But it is just that. Through their love of the Peruvian horse and the country of its origin, Dave and Cheryl created a truly unique way for their friends to share with them the experience of a lifetime. Tours on Horseback, as they call it, was born from their many trips to this region. Cheryl had been traveling to Peru since the 70s and developed extensive friendships with both Peruvian breeders and North American breeders. Through this common interest and bond with the Peruvian horse, it was natural that her North American friends would want to meet her Peruvian friends. And so, from taking friends from the Northern Hemisphere to the Southern Hemisphere, and the birthplace of the Peruvian horse, a new business grew called Tours on Horseback, or as Cheryl and Dave call it, Peru, as seen between the ears of a Peruvian horse. But lest you think this is a tour with regimented itineraries and strict schedules, Cheryl and Dave want to dispel that notion right now. They want people to think of this as a group of friends getting together for a trail ride, although this trail ride is in a very special place. Besides trail riding in the country, on the beaches, in the Andes Mountains and historic areas, their friends on each trip stay in 4-star hotels or ancient haciendas. Each trip is a unique adventure, and although they may go to some of the same locations and special sites, no 2 trips are ever the same. Adventure, relaxation, hospitality, and spontaneity are the key elements of each tour.
Ole!
Now, like we mentioned, this is a luxury tour, not a working tour. The horses are saddled and guests are helped onto a horse who is carefully matched and suited to each rider's ability. Travel other than on fine Peruvian horses is by air, or by what they call the mothership, an air-conditioned Mercedes-Benz bus, which is never far away, so guests can take a break most any time from riding and relax with cool drinks in the nearby bus. Dining is native and frequent, with special meals found nowhere else in the world. The average age of people on the tour is 52. And some have little or even no riding experience. But the naturally smooth gait and willing temperament of the Peruvian horses make this a pleasurable trip and experience for even novice riders. You don't even have to know Peruvian horses to enjoy this trip. Anyone who loves adventure and horses will be quite at home on these trips.
Ole!
Ole! Yes, girls.
Good horses, Cheryl.
Yes.
I love my boy.
Yeah, I love this one. She's great.
Carl, you'll have somebody different. Unfortunately.
I like riding first. This is fun.
Each trip is a combination of riding through towns and open country, visiting historic landmarks and museums chronicling the history of the Peruvian civilization, understanding the culture of this country, motor coaching through the Andes, relaxing with first-rate accommodations, and of course, lots of fine dining. There's something for everyone of every interest level to be found on these trips. Besides the logical tie-in of the Peruvian horses, people go to discover history, archaeology, the ruins, the culture of the people of Peru.
3 years ago, this new discovery that Peru said is going to change the name. For example, for a long time, the archaeology thought that Peru was sea level. For example, here in the sign of the head of the bird. Because if you touch the color, the color comes on your finger.
The mountain deserts and Pacific beaches all present boundless photo opportunities, and cameras are seen as standard equipment for each trip. From the Pacific to the Andes, everywhere you look and every place you will see overwhelms one with images they want to capture and preserve for a lifetime. Peru is land of exquisite contrasts, and Dave and Cheryl's guests will experience them all. From riding horses through farmlands and desert areas to mountains and rolling ocean beach areas, you'll experience the beauty and variation that Peru has to offer. You won't need to speak the local language to enjoy every aspect of this beautiful country. Cheryl is fluent in the native language. You'll quickly learn that the warmth, generosity, and hospitality of the Peruvian people transcend any perceived language barriers. Hospitality is a universal language.
Este es medio hermano de madre de Sol Brillante.
And this is his mother is the same mother as Sol Brillante, the Noene's horse.
Tomarle la cola.
At each visit, guests are warmly welcomed by the host family. They proudly display and present to the visiting group their Peruvian horses to the delight of everyone.
Todavía no está puesto, ¿eh? Esta es la yegua que llevo a jugar campeonato. La yegua más realeza de la vida. Bueno, cuando los partidos tuvieron el criadero, él cogió una parte y cogió otra. Y cogió la parte, lo que fueron todos los... Van a ver en mi casa, las decoraciones de mi casa es a base de los de los caballos.
Yeah, what you see in here is trophies that were won by the family. When him and the trophies that were won by the family, and then there's the house is decorated with trophies all over the house.
Dile que el criadero de la época de mi padre hasta ahora más o menos tenemos para decir que fue ordenado.
7,000.
Que fue ordenado.
They have 7,000 trophies.
Claro,
But that starts with his father, you know.
One of the special things the group will learn about their gracious hosts is that they're not only shown the national show champion performance in breeding horses, they're invited to ride them as well. At one family's hacienda, the visiting guests try on the beautiful trappings of a matador belonging to a member of the host family.
Oh, please. It's very, very hot. Oh, well, I went with okay. Right now. Give her a chance to get out here. She got a little bit. That's just fit. It's perfect fit. Back up a little bit. It's beautiful. Ole!
The pink and yellow cape is used by the capeador in a bullfight to test and assess the bull prior to the matador engaging the bull. Cheryl and Dave's Peruvian friends enjoy sharing their horses and their love for this special breed. At each host's home, they proudly share their history and involvement with the Peruvian horse, as well as their lifetime of accomplishments with their horses. Horses and hospitality are truly a universal language.
This isn't like the side saddle that we use because we have another horn that comes over and holds our leg on. This one is like just sitting on your horse's back. You don't have any security at all on that.
Y estos son los estribos de los antiguos caballos.
Oh my God. And this is
There's plenty of time for guests to take in different sights and experiences. Some of the group decide to take in a traditional bullfight. A popular local event, these artisans skilled in the art of bullfighting display their abilities to the delight of the crowd.
Negra Pancha, ganador de la Feria Cruz Justo. Estructuras metálicas, la casa. Todo este día de mañana, invitamos el público.
One of the highlights of visiting this colorful country is the Concurso Nacional del Caballo Peruviano del Paso, the national horse show for the Peruvian horse, where the finest Peruvian horses are on display for the world to see and admire. The Peruvian horses were bred as traveling horses, built for comfort rather than speed. They need to cover large areas and survey the vast haciendas. It was essential that they be smooth, willing to please, and have a motor that was always ready to go. The exceptional smooth gait is not a trained way of going, but the natural movement of the Peruvian horse. Even newborn foals displayed this natural gait from birth. This popular event is an opportunity for Peru to showcase to the world the excellence they have achieved over many generations of breeding Peruvian horses. The pageantry and spectacle of this event is something everyone enjoys. Interestingly enough, Peruvian horses are bred to be workhorses that can be shown, not show horses that can be ridden. The exceptionally smooth movement of the Peruvian horse is clearly demonstrated in one class where competitors carry a glass of champagne around the track, losing very little, if any, of the contents of the glass. Everyone enjoys being part of this event. Colorful dancers show the spectators the cultural and historical side of their country through the expressive and colorful traditional dances. Even the children partake in this colorful exhibition of their traditional and cultural roots. And watching the Peruvian horse dance will give you some idea of how integrated the horse is into the Peruvian culture.
Bravo. Bravo.
The horses compete in a variety of competitions to the delight of spectators, from halter classes to saddle classes, and everything in between. The temperament, suitability, and versatility of the Peruvian horse are evident in all of the performance classes, but these versatile attributes are most effectively displayed in a trail class like no other.
Quiero ver esta parte. ¿Quién va a fallar? Chévere, ¿cómo fue eso? ¡Para allá!
I don't want to be.
If he falls once, I'm in trouble. Right after.
This is.
Seguro. You just roll right over with me.
One of the notable features of the national show is the parade of women. Traditionally in South America, women did not ride the horses, especially in the national show. But for many years, Cheryl encouraged her friends to ride and participate in these events. Now, women's groups from Ecuador, Peru, and surrounding countries participate in this annual event. Cheryl and her friends, who make up a stunning contingent of side saddle riders, the Texas Ladies Aside, were prominent participants in the Parade of Women in 2002.
Por eso fue propulsor de ella, contra muchos hombres.
Ahora los luces. Contra algunos, no muchos, algunos. Gran barrida en homenaje a la señora Graciela Nacarino de Vázquez, esposa del señor Aníbal Vázquez Montoya, propietario del criadero Aníbal Vázquez Montoya, que el día de hoy cumple 50 años de participación en concursos nacionales.
¡Qué preciosa barriga! ¡Un aplauso, señores! ¡Qué linda barriga!
One of the many cross-country rides the group enjoys will include the visits to ancient ruins. At one site of ancient ruins, the group rides to a guest center, where they rest the horses and begin a fascinating and educational tour of the ruins of 2,000 years ago. On display at the guest center are reproductions of the many artifacts that have been discovered at the temples. Although the originals are safely displayed at a museum, these reproductions give visitors a glimpse of what these items may have looked like in their day. This area is home to the Temple of the Moon and the Temple of the Sun, two temple areas that played an important part in the history of this region and the civilization of that period. The temples of the Sun and Moon are a complex dominated by two huge adobe brick buildings, the Pyramid of the Sun, or Huaca del Sol, and the artificial platform called the Huaca de la Luna, or Temple of the Moon. On the quarter-mile open plain between the two temples lie many graves, most of them long since looted. Evidence of large-scale manufacturing has also been found.
The city, here, the population, the archaeologists said probably 5,000 people, but the high society. Why the high society? Because they're using adobe. Look at adobe.
This region boasts a rich archaeological legacy of the pre-Inca civilizations that occupied these valleys from the 1st of the 14th century A.D.
Different special archaeological sites, but not with paintings. 2,000 years ago, you are inside of this temple. This is very important.
The group is provided with a historical tour through the excavated areas, and the significance and history of the findings are presented and discussed. The images and artifacts take you back in time to imagine what life might have been like 2,000 years ago. These ruins have been under excavation for over 2 decades, but archaeological teams are learning something new every year. They only recently discovered what they believe to be is the main entrance to the Temple of the Moon. The city of Chan Chan lies just outside of Trujillo on the Pacific coast. Chan Chan, which was the capital of the kingdom of Chamur, also known as the Chamu Empire, represents South America's largest pre-Hispanic mud brick settlement. Near the small village of Saipan lies the most important archaeological finds of the 20th century, the tomb of the warrior priest, the Lord of Saipan. The site was discovered in 1987 when local police discovered Chamu artifacts of the finest quality in the hands of local grave looters. An investigation of the area resulted in this exceptional discovery. Hundreds of examples of finely crafted precious metals and sophisticated pottery have been excavated and are on display at the museum to the delight of visitors. In 1990, a second tomb was excavated and resulted in the discovery of the Old Lord of Saipan. It was recognized as the richest unlooted tomb excavated in the New World. The tomb excavations have been recreated in exquisite detail. At the tomb of the Lord of Saipan, guardians were placed on each side of the deceased Lord of Saipan. The feet were cut off of the guardians to ensure that they stayed in place to guard the Lord of Saipan in the afterlife. According to ritual custom, the guardians were drugged after the death of the leader. Their feet were cut off, and they were buried alive along with animals and other valuable artifacts. No trip would be complete without venturing up into the Andes Mountains. The highway through the Andes seems to climb forever towards the sky. The road passes through a number of small towns where the local townspeople often break into spontaneous celebrations. At about 8,000 feet above sea level lies the stopover at Cajamarca. This dairy farming area is surrounded by the clouds as much as the mountains. Historically, this area was the start of the end of the Inca Empire. Then the Inca leader, Atahualpa, was taken prisoner and later was killed in the main square by the Spanish explorer Francisco Pizarro. After paying Pizarro a room filled with gold and 2 rooms filled with silver. Cheryl makes a new friend with Parachino named Choca. The Parachino is an ancient breed of South American dog that is mostly hairless, but has a sweet temperament to make up for the lack of hair.
Choca.
He wants to go to Texas.
Uh-huh. You'd be one big blister in the summertime, Choca.
Yeah, Choca in Texas. What a good puppy.
enjoy going down the canyon, up the mountains, down the road, across the creeks.
Shrimp. Down by the river. Yep.
That was one of the most wonderful rides I've been on in a long, long time. It was super. The horses were wonderful, the weather was wonderful, and the company was superior. I'm Beverly Raphael from College Station, Texas.
Brenda Lopez from Fort Worth, Texas, and I've never seen anything like this, and I definitely will be back next year.
I'm Joyce Brown. I thought the ride was fabulous.
My name's Suzanne Brown, and we're not related. I liked the ride. It was great. We saw an old hacienda that was part of the Shining Pass, a place where they had banditos on the top to prevent police from coming in. That was real cool. Didn't you hear that?
Well, I didn't hear them say Shining Pass.
Yeah, well, they said it in Spanish. Whatever.
Oh, no wonder I didn't
and
hear
they
them say
invited us in for a visit.
Look at the size of that monster.
I'll try one of those. Somebody needs to pick it up so you can see
Well,
it.
I ain't gonna pick it up. I just...
One of the stopovers is at the oceanside town of Pacus Mine, where the boardwalk runs directly in front of the hotel, and the hotel verandas look out on the oceanfront boats and local pier. The group even rides their horses right up to the hotel to the delight of the local townspeople. This fascinating journey and experience that Cheryl and Dave offer has been covered and written about prominently in major magazines and newspaper articles. Not only do Cheryl and Dave take their friends with them to Peru to experience all of its excitement and grandeur, but they bring home with them some of the finest handcrafted saddles and tack to be found. Their ranch is home to RAINTREE Tack, where people will find the most exceptional offerings in authentic Peruvian tack and equipment. Guests on this trip to Peru will have the opportunity to see how these exceptional pieces of handiwork are produced. Seeing the end product can't do justice to understanding how these museum-quality pieces are handcrafted from the most basic materials and using the most basic of hand tools. The exquisite hand braiding of the reins, headstalls, and bridles even begins with the most rudimentary of hand tools.
But they'll have as much as 32, 36 strands in some of these. Most of our commercial bridles are 28, I think, around 26, 28. It's amazing that they just take their knife and just slice it. I mean, that is, you know, I can't draw a straight line. I just make such a mess.
Oh, look how he sharpens the knife.
Yeah.
The individual braided strips are sliced by hand from a large piece of hide. No templates or precision machines are used, just the steady hand and eye of a craftsman who knows the feel of the hide and the sharp hand tool. All of the tooling and design work on each saddle are done by hand, making each saddle unique in its design.
And some people are longer through here and shorter through here, so it's very.
So it's really made to order. It has to be made to order.
Side saddles are very hard to fit. Well, very
really there, and it was really a beautiful side saddle, and it was a very expensive saddle, but you know you'd have to.
And then the best saddle that daughter has.
That's right.
That Suzanne has fits everybody and every horse. I love that saddle. So yes, yo está sentado así. You lift up the flap, it sits there like a.
The traditional Peruvian stirrup is not leather as most people are familiar with, but made from native Peruvian mahogany. Each stirrup is cut from a solid block of mahogany and then hollowed out, stained, decorated, and finished. Even the silver appointments and trappings are made by hand at the factory. German silver is heated in a crucible until it's molten, and then the liquid silver is poured into handmade molds. When cooled, the molds are opened, and the molded silver pieces for silver spurs, rowels, and buckles are displayed.
The outside might be.
Cheryl has been instrumental in introducing high-quality Peruvian tack into the U.S. and helps people understand the importance of fit and function with saddles and equipment. Proper fit is a key element in building and fitting a saddle correctly.
This is higher here, and this is higher, and it goes more straight up and down. donde hay un casco de concurso. De vestir, sí. You can see the difference in how the saddles are. That is the difference in when you're buying a saddle, you got to think about what you like, what you feel comfortable in. Now you can have a show saddle on a work tree, something that's deeper and has a deeper seat, or you have one like this. This is more open. It's easier to lay a peon in. That's one of the reasons that they have them shaped like this. You'll also notice that these are how wide they are across here. That this whole part should be making contact with your horse's back.
Cheryl offers the unique ability to take a custom mold of any horse with her to Peru and have a saddle built specifically to fit that particular horse. Cheryl also has been instrumental in developing a comfortable and functional side saddle for Peruvian horses.
People wanted something that was more that they were more familiar with, a saddle that was one piece, that was similar to a Western but still had a Peruvian feel, and it's a box seat saddle.
Hooks in the back and everything.
Oh yeah, you'll see some that are already made.
They're very comfortable. I bought one several years ago and they are really comfortable.
Yeah, that's probably. He says also the wood that this is made out of is also very light wood. It's very strong and light at the same time.
Even if you prefer a traditional Western style saddle, they can incorporate the traditional look of a Western saddle with the comfort and design elements of a Peruvian saddle.
It's a Western saddle up here on top, but it has the Peruvian tree underneath that fits a Peruvian horse.
Okay.
And they just have to have their Western saddles and they have to have this English stuff.
Although these items look more like living room showpieces than something you would take outdoors and use every day, everything about Peruvian tech was designed for more than just one function. With resources scarce in many areas of Peru, a horseman's equipment needed to provide as much utility as possible.
Peruvian tack to the uninitiated can be a little confusing and sometimes downright mind-boggling. But basically the horse carries everything you need to be out on the trail. And because Peru is basically a desert country and their roads were pretty bad for many, many years, that they used the horse for their basic mode of transportation. And when they were traveling, they would, of course, have to stop overnight, and they would be camping in the desert. And so when they would stop for the night, they'd, of course, take the bridle off, and a basilio, which is like an English cavesson, and, of course, their reins, which left the horse with a halter and a long lead line and a pair of tapa-ojos, which are basically eye covers or blinders. And so when they would camp for the night, they would have their long lead line. They would take one of their stirrups, which is made of a solid block of wood. They would simply hook the lead line through this, bury the stirrup in the sand, slip the tapa-ojos down over the eyes, and their horses were ground tied. Not knowing that the stirrups weren't all that big, the horses would pretty much stay there. Then, with their gear, the saddle comes in many pieces. It doesn't go on as one piece, so you're never lifting anything very heavy. This is called a peon, peyonera, and it's padded. It's filled with cotton and is cushioned. The saddle is one piece, and then they have a piece called a corona. And when they camp for the night, they would take their corona, lay it on the ground for their ground cover, take their blanket, lay it on it, and that became their mattress. And they could use their cushion on their saddle for a nice cushioned pillow. And then because they always rode with a poncho, this would then become their blanket. So basically, the horse carried all of the camping gear. The other stirrup could then have a candle placed in the foothold, and that would become a candle for them, or a lantern. The other pieces of the Peruvian saddle, which is the guarnición, possibly had its originations with the Spanish horses when they would wear a quilted protective covering for the horse's belly. And this could possibly be the remnants of the framework for that quilt. Today it has no purpose other than it is traditional, and the Peruvian horse in its tack is steeped in tradition and is used when showing the horse. These are both traditional Peruvian bits, and as you can see, the only difference is the one on the left is copper and 2 rollers. The one on the right is 6 roller and stainless steel. Other than that, they're the same. The ports are the same. They're a very mild, short-ported bit. The shanks are very short, and these are what we show the horses in, and it's also the way the horses are trained to ride with a very mild bit.
Peruvian tack and clothing styles were developed over hundreds of years, not to provide simply an elegant look and feel, but to provide many functions needed to survive in the rugged Peruvian countryside.
As we know, the Peruvian horse is steeped in tradition, and also is the rider and his gear. We have a traditional Peruvian hand-woven hat. We ride with a scarf with a ring. This is a poncho that is hand-loomed cotton and is quite heavy, and this is the gear that somebody would show in, and simply because it goes back to the tradition of it gave protection to the rider while he was riding across the desert, and also acted as his blanket when he had to camp out at night, and kept the dust from his clothes. A lot of history to the handiwork that they do with the cotton and the straws, and of course cotton is one of the main crops in Peru. And these are very fine Panama hats. They'd probably run in the United States to buy one, you're probably looking in the $400 to $500 range for this quality of hat.
The other thing you didn't mention is that in Peru, they always wear white shirts and white pants. It's cooler in the tropics to wear white.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason for the poncho, is that when they were riding, of course, it would be dusty and dirty, and the poncho kept the dirt from their white clothes so that they would look fresh when they got to their destination.
With over 30 years of involvement with the Peruvian horse, Cheryl and Dave offer more than extensive experience with the Peruvian breed. Not only can they introduce you to the special attributes and versatility of this durable breed, but they can take you on the adventure of a lifetime with the Peruvian horse to the origins of this magnificent breed.